Hello Lana, welcome to yet another episode of our Maths Class 6 lesson, and in our topic today we shall be dealing with squares and square roots. To start us off, I want us to look at that picture. Let's talk about it. It has got 4 sides and each of the side is equal to the other one. So that is a square. Now to get the area of that square, we normally say 1 times 1 because we are assuming from here to here is 1 unit and from here to here is another unit. So 1 times 1 you get 1. In other words, what have we done? We have just multiplied 1 by itself and we call it a square. So we write it as 1 and a small 2 on top to show that it is a square. If I have a bigger one, it is still a square because you can see it has 2 units and 2 units, meaning both sides are equal. And I want to multiply, and for me to get the area, I will just say 2 multiplied by 2 so that I can get 4. So I can express that one as 2 times 2, which is equal to 4, or I can just write 2 and a small 2 on top to mean that I'm squaring that 2. And another example here, I have a bigger square with 4 units, and 4 units are on the length and on the other side the width. So I'm going to say 4 multiplied by 4, which will be 16, but I can write that one as 4 times 4, which is 16, or I can even make it shorter and write it as 4 and a small 2. So when you multiply a number by itself, we say that you're finding the square of that number. I have a multiplication table with me here from 1 up to 9, and I believe we know how to use a multiplication table. For example, if I take 1, I want to multiply maybe 3 and 5. I will just come where 3 is, just a minute. Okay, I will just come where we have 3, and then I go where we have 5, and then I draw a line across and another line across, and this point where the 2 lines meet, this is where my answer is. That is how a multiplication table works. If, for example, I'm multiplying 6 by 8, I'll just circle 6 here and I circle 8 here. So I'm going to move along with 6 and again downwards here, and at this point where we have 48, where the 2 lines have met, then I get my answer. Okay, so we are going to look at squares of different numbers using our multiplication table. We are going to start with 1 multiplied by 1, and the answer is 1. 2 multiplied by 2, the answer is 4. Remember the secret? Circle the number across, circle the number downwards. Where the 2 meet, there you get your answer. Okay, 3 multiplied by 3, you get 9. 4 multiplied by 4, you get 16. 5 multiplied with 5, you can even guess the answer should be 25. Okay, 6 and 6, when we multiply, we get 36. How about 7? I'll move this way, and I think it will meet at 49. And yes, we got it. 8 by 8, we get 64. And finally, 9 multiplied by 9, you get 81. So we have just multiplied numbers by themselves. I have multiplied 1 by itself, 2 by itself, 3 by itself, and so on up to 9 by itself. The product that I get is my square. Okay. So now we want to use our multiplication table to get 5 squared. Remember, we have said when you see this small 2 up here, then you know that you're multiplying that number by itself. And we read this number as 5 squared, 9 squared. So let us get our interpretation. 5 squared is the same as 5 times 5. From there, we get our multiplication table, and we get where 5 is, and we go downwards. Okay, you've seen what we've done. We've gone downward, and then the other one. What have we discovered? These 2 columns have met at 25. Okay, and therefore, our answer becomes 25. So 5 squared is the same as 25. How about our B, which is 9 squared? We interpret it as 9 multiplied by 9. Because to square a number, you have to multiply that number by itself. We get our multiplication table, and we get our 9 down here and the other 9 there. So we draw our line downwards up to the end of the column, and here we do the same. There's a number that has been trapped, and that is 81. So our number which has been trapped becomes our answer. So when you square 9, the answer will be 81. Okay. Can we try now and get the square of a 2-digit number? That was just a 1-digit number. In this case, we shall have to use a multiplication table. So we have our table here, 12 multiplied by 12. We have to start with the smallest, which are the ones. We multiply there and there, then this one, there and there, until we get our answer. So 2 times 2, the answer is 4. I write 4. 2 times 1, the answer is 2. So I'm going to write 2 here. Okay. 1 times 2, the answer is 2. So I write 2 here. And finally, 1 times 1 is 1. So I write my 1 here. The next thing is to add 4. 4 and 1, and finally my answer is 144. So when I square 12, I'll get 144. Here we have to change it. Okay, that was 2. So we go to the next example where we have 17 squared, and it's 17 multiplied by 17. So again, we're going to start with the ones. So 7 times 7, the answer is 49. I write 9, and then I carry 4. 7 times 1 is 7. Then the 7 I get, I add to the 4 that I carried to get 11. And because there is no other third digit there, I'm going to write my 11. Then 7 times 1 is 7. I write it right under 1. And then 1 times 1 is 1. And I write it here. After that, we put together, get 9. 1 plus 7 is 8. And then 1 plus 1, you get 2. 289 becomes our answer. So if it's a single digit number, you can use the multiplication table. But if it's a 2-digit number, just write the place value table, and then you make sure you multiply every digit in the first row with the digits on the second row. All right. So what have we learned? We have learned that the square root, okay, the square, you take a number and you multiply that number by itself. How about now the square root? When you're looking for a square root, you have to do the reverse as when you are doing the square. For example, when I have 3 squared, I will take 3 and I multiply by 3 to get 9. When I have the square root of 9, I have to think the number that I'm going to divide with so that I get the same number. In squares, we multiply, and then in square root, we divide. So I have to think of a number. When I divide my square with that number, I will get the same number. All right? So let's see how do we get that. I've been told to look for the square root of 16. I have to look for a number that when I multiply that answer, when I multiply by itself, it should give me 16. We're going to use a method called prime factorization. Now, prime factorization is a method whereby you express that number as a product of its prime numbers. And what is a prime number? A prime number is that number that can only be divided by 1 and itself. It does not have any other divisor. So here we have our 16, and our smallest prime number here will be 2. So when I divide 16 by 2, I'm going to get 8. This 8, I have to divide it further, just like the way we look for LCM. I divide it further by 2, and I'll get 4. 4, I divide by 2, and I will get 2. So once I reach the smallest prime number that I can ever get in that number, I stop there. I don't have to divide further. So now I express my 16 as 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. That is step number 1. Express that number as a product of its prime factors. I have just done that. The next thing will be step number 2. I am going to put the prime numbers in pairs. And remember, when you're pairing, make sure you pair the like terms together. I cannot pair 2 and 5. I cannot pair 2 and 3. I have to put all the 2's together and all the 5's together. And that is why it is advisable you start from the smallest prime number as you go to the biggest. It becomes easier instead of starting to arrange later. So now I have 2 times 2. That is one of my pairs. And then I have another pair, which is 2 times 2. In each pair, I pick one digit. So here, I'm going to pick 2. In the next pair, I am going to pick 2. These 2 numbers I have picked from each pair, when I multiply them, I get my product, which is 4. Because 2 multiplied by 2 is 4. 4 is now our square root. So the square root of 16 is 4. And we can try. When you multiply 4 by 4, what do you get? Correct, you get 16. So square root of 16 is 4. Let's look at another example. We have 729. Remember we said we have to express our number as a product of its prime factors. 729 we try with 2. It cannot work because it's an odd number. Remember, an odd number is that number you cannot divide with 2 and you don't get a remainder. But if it's an even, you divide by 2 and there is no remainder. So this is an odd number, so 2 is out of question. We go to the next prime number, which is 3. So 729, when you divide by 3, you get 243. We can do it together. 729 divided by 3 goes 2 times because of 6. Then 1, drop 2, 4 times. 6 because of 12, take away, get 0. Then you drop 9. 9 goes here 3 times, so 243. Okay, so again, we divide by 3 further. So 243 divided by 3 goes 8, because 8 times 3 is 24. Then we have 3 goes once. So because of 81. 81, we divide by 3. 2 because of 6. Get 2. Then we drop 1. 7 because of 21. So again, when we divide 81 by 3, we get 27. 27, when you divide by 3, what do you get? You get 9. And the 9, when you divide by 3, you get 3. As you can see, we cannot divide further because we've reached the least prime factor that we could in that kind of a number. The next thing is to put all these prime numbers together. So now we have expressed our 729 as a product of its prime factors, which is 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. Step number 2, after we do that, we pair the numbers. So I have that pair, that one, and that one. In every pair, I have to pick 1. So here, I'm going to pick 3. In the next pair, I pick 3, and in the other pair, I pick 3. We are multiplying those products. So when I multiply 3 times 3, I will get 9, and then 9 and 3, you get 27. And therefore, our square root is 27. So the square root of 729 equals 27. All right. This is a little bit simple. What is the square root of 900? So whenever you have a number that has got zeros in the end, you can just take the 2 zeros, you get one of the 2, and then you get the square root of 9 to get 3. So that way you can have 30. But I want us to go step by step. We write our 900, and because it's an even number, we'll start by dividing by 2 to get 450. Again, we divide by 2, we shall get 225. Okay. Divide by 3, you get 75. 225. Divide by 3, 7 because of 21. Drop 5. 5 because 3 times 5 is 15. So we get our answer as 75. We go further. 75, when you divide by 3, you get 25. You can notice the trend. We started with a small prime numbers. Then we went to a bigger one. As we get to 25, because we cannot divide by 3, we ask ourselves which is the next prime number that can divide there. And we see that when you divide by 5, you'll still get 5. Okay, so now we express our 900 as a product of these prime factors. Okay, and there we are. What do we do next? We pair the prime factors. Okay, so in every pair, again, we pick 1. Here we are picking 2. There we pick 3, and then we pick 5. Remember, we have to multiply. So 2 multiplied by 3 is 6. Then 6 multiplied with 5 will give us 30. So the square root of 900 will be 30. Okay. We have come to the end of our lesson, and I believe we have learnt a lot. We have learnt that there are some new words. Square is gotten when you take a number and you multiply that number by itself. We say you are squaring that number. Getting the square root is the reverse of getting the square. Why? We multiply when you're getting the square, but in square root, we divide. And whenever you're getting the square root, you think of a number that when I divide by that number, the answer will still be that number. Lastly, we have said when you're getting the square root, we normally use the prime factorization method. In prime factorization method, you express that number as a product of its prime factors. Pair those prime factors and pick one prime factor in every pair. Our assignment here, what is 13 squared? Number 2, find the square root of 64. And lastly, find one side of a square whose area is 81 square centimeters. Previously, we used prime factorization method, and we're going to build onto that to get the squares and also to find the square root of different numbers. I have a table with me here, and we call it a multiplication table. You can see the multiplication sign there, whereby when I multiply any number here, I'll be able to get the product on this table. So this is a multiplication table. And on this table, we're going to focus on squares. So I have this square whereby I'm multiplying 1 by 1 to get 1. Okay. 2 multiplied by 2, I get 4. The square of 3 is 9. The square of 4 is 16. The square of 5 is 25. Square of 6 is 36. Remember, when you say the square of a number, it is that number when you multiply by itself. The square of 7 is 49. The square of 8 is 64. And the square of 9 is 81. So, we have a question here. What is 6 squared? All right. So, the first thing we have to do is to interpret that statement. 6 squared means 6 multiplied by 6. Therefore, I'll be dealing with this number and this number. Okay. So, there we are. That is the our first column. And our next column here, we have the number that has been enclosed, which is 36. And therefore, 36 becomes our answer. That when you square 6, you get 36. Our second example, what is 8 squared? Again, we have our multiplication table with us. And I'm going to consider 8 on this side. And I consider 8 and I make my square. Okay. There we are. And here we are. You circle 8, you move along with it. And the other 8, you move along. Where they meet, that becomes your answer. So we can say that 8 squared is 64. From there, we need to get square of 15. All right? So we shall need a multiplication, our multiplication aligned vertically, and we arrange the numbers according to their place value. 15 multiplied by 15. So we start with 5 times 5 is 25. And I write 5, I carry 2. 5 times 1 is 5. Plus these 2 that I carried, I will get 7. Okay, so I write my 7 here. I go to the next digit, which is 5 multiplied by 1, or 1 multiplied by 5, and I get 5. Then 1 multiplied by 1 is 1, and I write my 1 here. We put together here, 5 comes down, then 7 plus 5 is 12. I write 2, then I carry 1. 1 plus 1 is 2, and therefore I've already found the square of 15, which is 225. Okay, how about the square of 20? I have to take 20 and I multiply 20 by itself. Okay, so here we are, and as we said in our earlier lessons, whenever you're multiplying, you always start with a smaller number, the digit on your right, which is the ones. So 0 multiplied by 0 is 0. So what do I write? I write 0. It's 2. The answer is still 0. I come now to the second digit, which is 2. 2, when you multiply with 0, you get 0. So I write my 0 here, and then 2 multiplied by 2, I get 4. I write my 4 here. After that, I add the two products. Here 0, 0, and I drop my 4. So after squaring 20, I get 400. So I can say 20 squared equals 400. All right, so that is more about the squares, that whenever you want to get a square of a number, you multiply that number by itself. If it's a 2-digit number, create your place value table, write the numbers, and make sure that every digit on the upper row has been multiplied by every digit on the lower row. So now we are looking at the square root. Okay, now we find a square by multiplying a number by itself. So all squares are products. Remember, when you multiply numbers, the answer you get is a product. So squares is not an exception. The only unique thing about the squares is that you're multiplying that number by itself, but you're carrying out multiplication, and therefore all squares are products. Our bullet number 2, the number you multiply by itself is now the square root, and therefore we have to figure out a way of getting that number from the answer that we have. We have an example here. When I square 8, I'll end up with 64. But that 64, when I look for the square root of that 64, I should be able to get 8 that I squared initially. We shall do that by using a method called prime factorization. I believe you encountered it earlier, and in our today's lesson we shall look deeper into prime factorization. So we've been told to find the square root of 36. So we have our 36 here, and remember we have to express 36 as a product of its prime factors. When we talk about prime factors, we are looking at those numbers that can only be divided by 1 or themselves, and they're the numbers that you're going to divide with our product. After we get those numbers, we write them and then we start pairing them. So let us go step by step. We have our 36 here. So I divide by 2, I will get 18. 2 is the least prime number. So again, 18, when I divide by 2, I'll be able to get 9. Remember, why am I dividing by 2? Because my product here and here are prime, are even numbers. But in my case here, I got 9. 9 is not an even number, it's an odd number. I cannot divide by 2. So I have to think of another prime number which is bigger than 2 that can divide 9. And that prime number is 3. So when I divide by 3, I get 3. So what have I done? I have expressed 36 as a, according to there, I have just done prime factorization. So now, the next thing I'm expressing, that is 6, as a product. Why am I expressing it? Because there's a multiplication sign there. So we are expressing that is 6 as a product of its prime factors. So after doing that, we pair the prime numbers. As you can see, there's a 2, a 2, a 3, and a 3. So I have to make sure I put the 2's together and the 3's together so that I can pair them. So that is the first pair, and that is the second pair. So in each pair, I'm supposed to pick only one. I cannot take both, but I'll just pick one. And in the next pair, I will also pick 1. So now I have 2 and I have 3. The next step, I multiply the 2 prime factors that I picked, which is 2 and 3, and I get 6. I can say that the square root of 36 is 6. Let's look at another example. We've been asked, what is the square root of 144? Remember, this is the symbol for square root. Just like the way we said, when you see a small 2 on a number, for example, 4 squared, it means you have to multiply that number by itself. So in our case here, we have now to look for the square root of 144. So that is the symbol for finding the square root. So we have to first of all factorize our number. So 144 is an even number, and therefore we shall start by 2. When we divide by 2, you get 72. Okay? 72, again we divide by 2. What do we get? We get 36. Our 36, we divide it further by 2, and we get 18. Okay? It's still an even number, so we'll still divide by 2, and we will get 9. So now here, we have to think further. Because 9 is not an even number, then I have to think of another prime number which is bigger than 2 that can divide 9, and that prime number is 3. So when I divide by 3, I get 3. I'm done with factorizing. So what do I do next? I express my number as a product of the prime factors. So I have 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 3 to get 144. After that, I pair my prime factors. Okay. In every pair, I pick 1. I just pick 1. So here I will pick 2. In the next pair, I pick 2. And in the other pair, I pick 3. After that, I multiply. So 2 multiplied by 2, I will get 4. Then 4, I further multiply by 3. What do I get? I get 12. Okay. So we can say that the square root of 144 is 12. Okay. Now, there's another concept that has been introduced here. Find one side of a square whose area is 196 centimeters squared. We know that a square is a 4-sided figure that has got all sides being equal. And for us to get that area, we do side multiplied by side. What does it mean? The same number we multiply by itself to get the area. So we are going to apply the skill of square root so that we are able to find one of the sides. Okay, area of a square is side times side, and in our case, we don't know what is S, but we have the answer, which is 196 squared. So I write my 196 and I start to factorize. The smallest prime number is 2, and because it's an even number, it agrees. 196 divided by 2, 9 because of 18. Okay, 8 because of 16. So we get our 98. 98 is still even. So we are going to divide by 2. Goes 4 because of 8. 1, 9. Then we get 9. So 49. Okay. 49 cannot be divided by 2. So we look for another prime number that when we divide, we shall get an answer without a remainder. So I cannot divide by 3 because there will be a remainder. I cannot divide with 5. There will still be a remainder. So after 5, the next prime number is 7. So 49, when I divide by 7, I get 7. Now I have finished factorizing my number. I am going to express my number as a product of the prime factors. I've done that. And whenever you're doing that, remember the like ones, you put them together. Instead of having 2, 7, 2, 7, put all the 2's together, put all the 7's together, so that it's so easy for you to do the pairing. Then I pair my two types of prime numbers, and in every pair I pick 1. So here I'm going to pick 2, and in the next one I will pick 7. I multiply the 2 and I will get 14, and therefore we can say one side of that square will be 14 centimeters. Okay, so let us try out what is the square of 4 squared. I know you can quickly take 4 times 4 and you get 16. But our question is asking us, what is the square of 4 squared? So what do? I have to take 4, I multiply by 4, I get 16. That is the first thing to do. After that, I'm going to take 16 and then I multiply with 16 because I have to square this one. So I say 16 times 16. 6 times 6, you get 36. So we carry 3. 6 times 1 is 6 plus 3, you get 9. 1 times 6, 6. 1 times 1, 1. Remember, whenever you're multiplying, the product you get when you multiply with the ones digit, you write it right below it. The product you get after you multiply with the tens, you write just below it. And now we have to add the two products to get 6. 9 plus 5 is 15, and then 2. So we can say our answer is 256. What have we done? We have first of all worked out this, and then we have squared it. Our next tryout, the area of a square piece of land is 36 square meters. What is the perimeter of that land? So first of all, we need to get one side of that square land. So we have our land here, which is 36 square meters. And we have to prime factorize to get one of the sides. So we have our 36 here by 2, 18 by 2, 9, by 3, 3. So 2 times 2 times 3 times 3, I can pair those, and I pair this, so that I pick 2 here and I pick 3 here. So 2 times 3 is 6. It means I had multiplied 6 times 6 to get the area. But now the question is, what is the perimeter of the land? Perimeter means the distance around that piece of land. So I already have one side, and because it's a square, this will be 6 and this also will be 6. So 6 plus 6 is 12, plus another 6, you get 18, plus another 6, you get 24. So we can say the perimeter of that land is 24 meters. And here we got 256. Okay. We have come to the end of our lesson. I would like you to try out that assignment. The first one, find the sum of the square root of 144 and the square of 3. The next one, the area of the shape below is 625. What is the value of y? Remember, when you see a shape like this with these marks here, it means that that is a square. In our lesson today, we shall be looking at squares and square roots. And to start us off, to square a number, you multiply the number by itself. I believe that is a statement you have carried through from class 6 up to now. And also, we have an example here. This is a square. You can see that all sides are equal. So when you want to get the area of this square, it means you multiply one side by the other side, which is the same as getting that measurement of one side and then you square it. Okay, so our example, 13 multiplied by 13, it's a 2-digit number, and therefore we shall use our place value table to multiply. We're going to start with the ones as we go to the tens. And remember, every time you're multiplying, you have to make sure the numbers, the digits on the first row are multiplied with every digit on the lower row. So 3 multiplied by 3, you get 9. 3 multiplied by 1, you get 3. 3 times 1, you get 3. And because this is the tens place value, I will not write my answer here, but I'm going to write it under the number, the digit I'm multiplying with. Then 1 times 1, you get 1. So now let us add. You get 9, 6, and 1. So we can say that 13 squared, or 13 times 13, is 169. Okay. 29 multiplied by 29, we get our table, and we're starting with the ones. So 9 times 9 is 81. I will write 1 and then I carry 8. Okay. Then the same 9 I multiply with 2, I'll get 18, plus the 8 I carried, then I get, plus the 8 that I carried, I get 26. So I write my 26 here. I'm done with the first row, so I go to the next digit on the lower row. So 2 multiplied by 9 is 18. So I'm going to write 8 and then I carry 1. 2 times 2, I get 4. Okay. Then 4, I add the 1 that I carried, I get 5. And I write my 5 here. From there now, I add. Okay. 1. 6 plus 8 is 14. So I write 4. I carry 1. 1 plus 2 is 3. Plus 5, you get 8. So I can say that the square of 29 is 841. what did I do? I multiplied every number, okay, I multiplied every digit on this number with 9, and I got the answer. After that, on the second row, I multiplied with 2, and then I added to get 841. And remember, every time you multiply and you get to carry, you have to add after multiplication. You cannot say 18 and then you cannot add 8 to 2, then you multiply. You first of all multiply and then you add. Okay. We can find the square root of a number using 2 methods. So that was about squaring, and now we are looking at the reverse, which is finding the square root. Previously, we learned about prime factorization, and therefore we shall do maybe 2 examples to remind ourselves, and then now we go to another method, which is averaging method. So, on prime factorization, what do we do? First of all, we express the number as a product of its prime factors. Number 2, you pair the prime factors. And remember, the prime factors you're pairing have to be the same. You cannot pair 2 and 3, but you can pair 2 and 2, 3 and 3. So you bring them together so that you can pair them. Pick one factor from each pair. And then finally, multiply the factors to get the square root of the square number. Work out the square root of 64 and 729 using prime factorization method. So in this case, we have been specified the method to use. We shall start with our 64, and the first thing is to get the prime factors. I divide by 2 and I get 32. I divide further by 2, we get 16. Divide by 2, you get 8. Okay? Divide again by 2, you get 4. 4 divided by 2, you get 2. So I am done with factorizing that number. The next thing is I'm going to pick or to pair those prime factors. And in this pair, I have picked 1. In the next pair, I also pick 1. And in the third pair, I pick 1. I multiply. 2 by 2 is 4, and 4 multiplied by 2 is 8. Okay? Okay, 2 by 2 you get 4. Remember what we said, when you multiply a 3 digits, what do? You start with the first 2 and then you multiply with the third one, the product of the first 2. So 4, and here I'm picking 2. When I multiply, I get 8. So we can say that after prime factorization, the square root of 64 is 8. Okay, 729. We shall start with 3. Okay, because it cannot be divisible by 2, we get 243. Then we divide further by 3, we shall get 81. Again, when we divide by 3, we will get 81 divided by 3 is 27. Our 27, when you divide by 3, you will get 9. The 9, when you divide by 3, you get 3. After we have factorized, now we need to pick our prime numbers and we pair them. So I have paired that pair, and from that pair, I pick 1. Okay. The next pair, again I pick 1. And in the last pair, I pick 1. So I have 3 and 3 and 3. I'm supposed to multiply, and therefore I take the first 2. 3 times 3, I get 9. and then the product I multiply with the other 3 to get 27. So I can say that the square root of 729 is 27. All right. Now we want to use the averaging method. And averaging method is used to get even the square root of those bigger numbers, unlike the prime factorization. So what are the steps? The first step is you get an estimate square root. You estimate this number lies between this and this. So what could be there? The square root. So you estimate the square root. That estimation you have made, you divide that number or the square with it. If there is a remainder, just ignore it. Then take the answer plus the estimate that you had made, you add, and then you divide by 2. So I'm going to find the average of the quotient, that is the answer, and the divisor, the one you estimated. When you get the average of the 2, you'll be able to find the square root. So we have 169, and we want to use the averaging method to work out the square root of 169. As you can see, the square root, we normally prefer using the squares, the multiples of 10 to decide. So 169, when I square 10, I get 100. When I square 20, I get 400. But 169 is very close to 100 than the way it is close to 400. Okay? So I'm going to take 10 as my estimate square root. So I do the division. I have my 169. I divide by 10, the one that I estimated. So how many times does it go? It goes 1 because of 10. Take away, you get 6. Then I drop 9. So how many times does 10 go in 69? It goes 6 times because of 60. So when you take away, you get 9. So this 9 that is remaining is what we are calling the remainder. Just ignore it. So I'm going to look at the divisor and the quotient. All right? So I take 16 plus 10, I get 26. After I get 26, I divide by 2 because we have to get the average. 26 divided by 2 is 13. Can we try if that's the square root? 13 times 13, you get 9, you get 3. You get 3, you get 1. Let's add 9, 6, and 1. So we have just found the square root of 169 using the averaging method. Our second example, now we have a little bit, a bigger number, 1,849, and we want to get the square root of this number using the averaging method. I ask myself, if I multiply 30 and 30, I will get 900. If I multiply 40 and 40, I will get 1,600. If I go to 50 and 50, I will get 2,500. So I'm having 1,600 or 1,600 and 2,500. That is the range. 1849 lies in between here. But 1849 or 1,849 is closer to 1,600 than the way it is closer to 2,500. And therefore, I'm going to consider 40. Therefore, I take my 1,849, I divide with the estimated square root, which is now 40. Okay, so it goes 4 times, because 40 times 4 is 160. Let's take away. You get 4, and then you get 2. Then we drop 9. Okay, so I have 249. How many times do I multiply 40? 6 times. So that I get 240. Again, when I take away, I get 9 as a remainder. Our rule number 3, or step number 3, was forget about the remainder. Now we have our divisor and our quotient. So I'm going to take 40 plus 46. Okay? So when I take 46 and 40, I will get 86. All right? Then 86, I'm going to get the average, or I'm going to divide by 2. Okay? When I divide 86 by 2, I will get 43. Let us work out to see if 43 is the square of 1849. So 43 times 43, you get 9, you get 12. 12 carry 1, 16 plus 1, 17. Get 9, 4, 8, 1. So again, we get our answer as 43. Okay. Now we have even a bigger number, 6,551. And we want to use the averaging method to get the square root. Step number 1, we ask ourselves, where does it lie? 6,400 is closer to 6,561 when I square 80. But when I square 90, then I'll get 8,100. So I'd rather take 80, which is closer. Remember, we have to estimate a square root. So 6,561, I divide by 80. Okay, goes 8 times, because 8 times 80 is 640. Take away, get 6, 1. Then now we drop our 1 here. We have 161. So how many times does 80 go into 161? Goes twice, because 2 times 80 is 160. Again, we take away, you get 1. All right. So I'm going to ignore the remainder, and I'm going to deal with 82 and 80. So 82 plus 80 will give me 162. Then what do I do next? 162, I divide by 2, because I have to get the average. Averaging method. Estimate, answer, you add, and then you divide by 2, and I get 81. And if you multiply 81 and 81, you're going to get 6,561. Okay, we have come to the end of our lesson, and I believe now you can work out square root of numbers, even bigger numbers. You don't have to use the prime factorization method, which might take you a very long time, but you can even work out square root of big numbers using the averaging method. I have an assignment for you. Work out the square root of the following numbers using averaging method. We have 484 and then 4,225. Until next time, I have been your teacher, Salome. Bye-bye.